Ah, okay. My wife used to work out.
Not blocking it.
No, she used to. How does it? No, she was in Malaysia and Thailand. I think someone said this is not food now. No, now she works for TRT. Everyone take a coffee.
Well, they're right. This is just a dividing in between the two spots. It's not a spot itself.
Sorry,
Yeah, step up. I'll look over your
these things are like just inside thinking technology and because I came in thinking we were living alive. Yeah, at the moment we're not being alive for 10.
I know, yeah.
It's running soft.
Hey, John.
Do you want your coffee?
It's okay.
I like it.
You never know. Yeah, you never know. Hey, how you doing? Costa Rica, but I don't know how much. That was like 2 weeks.
Okay, I want to make sure
This one will be up too.
Okay, that's why I wanted to just double check. I want to do everything still.
Yeah.
No, we're good. Don't worry. No, I'm too short for that.
It won't be a really wide shot, but I will be this. You'll be okay.
No, sometimes they hold my camera above my head. So you know which ones are live, so where they go. So where I can't hold it. That's all. That's good. Don't worry. I'll be alive. It's actually pretty empty. Yes.
There was like party
Okay, what's your name? Nice to meet you.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I am just finishing setting up here, but they should be starting here shortly. In about 10 minutes or so. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is specifically, some people are saying it's China, some people are saying it's Iran. I think it's just their generic conference, right? Whatever she wants to talk about, Karoline Leavitt, and then anything else they want to bring up. And then obviously, you know, reporters, QA. Yeah, hit that like button. And just really quick, welcome to the stream. I'll be covering updates on the war. We're also going to watch the Whitehouse conference, the press conference. We'll also do some live monitoring if we have time. Hit that like. It helps with the algorithm. And if you want to support in other ways, there are plenty of ways in the description, down in the links. And also, thanks to anyone that serves, has lost someone that serves, or has a family member that serves. We appreciate your service.
$50 a month. You know, they have to owe you a certain minimum amount before you start getting paid. Just to check. Just make sure that you make a mistake. That's $2.50. I'm telling you, it's great. I'm just saying, you know, let me show you them. Yeah, my first place, you know, so I know them. I mean, I haven't really met them. No. As far as I can tell, they're not cheating in a way. But we don't put on someone, your son, they were submitted, you can track images you submit. And the other things you see there, you just double check that, you know, the things you set up. Is that correct or having earned enough? Or maybe they made a mistake on their account. I mean, maybe you need bank account information or some sort of information. Right. It's possible they made a typo and they became the wrong person for 4 years. No, but it's like, you don't want to just double check it. Yeah, we'll just let that sit until they come up. That means I have to watch it closely, though. As far as I've seen, there's nothing confirmed that BB has passed. Hey, Originator, how's it going? Yeah, I haven't seen any confirmation anywhere.
I've seen it go back and forth several different times, saying it's AI and it's fake, and other stuff saying it's legitimately him. So at this point, I can't really say. We'll see where they go with it. I always look forward to the reporter questions. We know whatever they give us is going to be, hey, things are going great. Things are perfect. Look at how perfect we are. And then the questions come in, and then you see Karoline, Leavitt, or whoever's in there for that administration just losing their minds, just irritated. I should get like some elevator music or something. We do have some warnings that have come in too, but we'll get to that after this. I'm not sure how long this is going to be. It's usually not maybe like half an hour to an hour or something like that. Ding, ding, ding. Hey, German Shepherd Loki, how's it going? You want to sing? No, I can't sing. I've karaoke here and there. I used to, actually, interesting, I used to work for a recording studio a long time ago. And we had a record label. And we used to have singers and rappers, and we produced music and all that kind of stuff. We had some choirs from the church. We had some rock bands and stuff like that, but I mostly did audio engineering and music production. I haven't seen anything crazy going on with flights lately. There were a ton of straddle tankers, though, not too long ago. And now all the transponders are off. So I'm assuming they're refueling right now. All right, let's see. I want to see if there are any more Poseidons. Looking for some submarines. Let's check that out while we're waiting. I'm going to turn them on low, just so I don't miss it. All right, let's see. We'll switch to Intel. Nothing there, nothing there. Just flying across. Oh, interesting. We have one down by Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic. We'll have to watch that one to see if it starts circling anywhere. Might be heading down to this general area near Venezuela. That is interesting to see. One's just taking off. I can't get to this other one. They're like on top of each other. Okay. That's an interesting route. So down they were circling around. Is there an airport down here? Panama City International. Interesting pattern. Someone's saying Russia's near Cuba right now. Okay. Nothing there. Yeah, there were some big attacks overnight. Some major hits. And then we have this Poseidon here again, looking for submarines out in the Mediterranean on the west coast of Israel, south of Cyprus. Couple of Stratos. The rest are, like I said, are probably have their transponders turned off and are refueling right now. And of course, our transport planes. Looks like, do we have some drones? We have a bunch of drones out. All right, let's check out these drones. I have no Bayraktar TB2. Never heard of that before. Another one of those. So this is interesting. Okay. So it looks like one of these is possibly doing a mission because look at all these. Look at these trails. So they're doing recon and the ISR type stuff. All these loops over here. I wonder if these are looking for subs as well. That's an interesting pattern. I thought I saw one more. Where was that at? Maybe it already turned its transponder off. Oh, it's up here. There it is. This one's unknown. But very interesting patterns these do. Not sure exactly what they're looking for. We have some alerts coming in for Israel. Looks like missiles were launched, at least detected of a launch. Yeah, exactly. You could use this as a painting. So in general, not too much different than usual. Nothing major going on. Strait of Hormuz. Looks like there's just as many leaving as coming in. So I know they're talking about taking $2 million per tanker. That whole thing. And we'll be starting the press conference here shortly. Actually, they should have started already, but they should be starting here any minute. But it looks like that, if they're charging, someone did the math on it. If they charge $2 million per tanker, and with the number of tankers they have that go through there each day, it was like $100 billion per year that they would make. So that's that's for Israel, or sorry, that's for Iran to manage this themselves and charge $2 million to pass. And I don't know if that's $2 million in and out, or $2 million just in, or $2 million out. I don't know if it's $4 million total, but that's what they're wanting, and that's one of the things that they asked for from the U.S. in addition to reparations for damage that's been done in the war so far. Nothing going on with pizza. Everything's quiet. There was, earlier this morning, there were a few heightened radiation areas in Europe, but they seem to be back to normal. We have a few. We have one in New York, one in Ohio, and one in Chicago, or near Chicago, for the sensors right now, but that's not out of the ordinary to have a few. It's when you have, 5 or 6 or 7 in the same area that you start to worry. No major earthquakes, just some more up here in Greece. I don't know if you guys follow any of that stuff, but they're looking at the volcanoes up there. I have a video on my channel talking about the volcanoes, and it's pretty interesting what's going on. Come on, Karoline. I know she's pregnant, so we got to give her some grace. But it looks like they're really lighting up Western Iran. Lots and lots of hits. Looks like some drone. Yeah, it looks like Saudi Arabia has intercepted a lot of drones as well. Bahrain got attacked again. And I think the president, or no, he's the king. The king of Bahrain, he was going around, going to people that were injured in the hospital and kind of honoring them, which is always good to see. Obviously, you don't want them to get hurt in the first place, but if they do, it's always good to see respect coming back towards them. Yeah, it seems like they probably need like a Chinese food index, not just pizza. I'm sure they have Chinese takeout days for sure. Looks like drones and missiles going into Israel right now. $135 iodine. Are you saying you sell iodine? What about potassium iodide for nukes? Yeah, Pitchy, I've heard a lot of people appreciate the off-script radio stream. I've seen anywhere from like, I don't know, 30 to 60 people in there at any given time. I mean, obviously it's a nice place just to hang out and talk too, but there's quite a bit of stuff going on in there. And the automated alarm going to the video works pretty well too, I've seen. I've been able to go back and see some of the strikes and stuff that have happened. So, Jack, that's the interesting thing about these nukes. I don't know if you watch Canadian Prepper, but he's done some guests on that are pretty reputable for specific topics. But he was talking about the whole idea of nukes like devastating everything and doing a nuclear winter and all the typical stuff we hear about it isn't necessarily proven. It was just one guy by himself came up with that theory and just kind of pushed it on everyone else, and everyone just accepted it. But in reality, most people will probably survive nuclear war. So obviously it's going to be radiation exposure and stuff like that, but it's not like an instant death sentence. So they say that you should still prepare, right? You should still have food and water and medicine and ways to protect yourself and all that stuff, even if something does happen. But yes, ideally, we don't want that to happen. Yeah, exactly. Hiroshima. I mean, that land, like, so the way that radiation works, and I'm not like I'm not like a nuclear expert, but the radiation, yeah, Nagasaki, the radiation, the way it works is from a nuke, it's a certain amount of radiation at once, and then it dissipates over time. If you look at places like Chernobyl, there's a steady output of radiation because the radiation source is the nuclear reactors and things that have melted down. Whereas with a nuclear bomb, it's a finite amount of radiation, and then it starts to decay very rapidly. So usually within like 48 to 72 hours, you can safely go outside. You shouldn't hang out there for a long period of time. But then after like a couple weeks, 3-4 weeks, you should be able to go outside and still use caution, but you should be fine. So, yeah. So basically, if it's from a nuclear reactor at a nuclear plant, that is a constant amount of like a ton of radiation. And that is super dangerous, and you have to get out of that area. And that area will be screwed for, thousands of years. But if it's just like a nuke, like if they drop a nuke on, name your city, then it will be technically uninhabitable for a couple of days with deadly radiation. And then after 3 or 4 weeks, it's livable, but you still get exposed. And obviously you could still have some other issues health-wise. But like long term, like years and that kind of, decades, then it's not terrible, right? Not terrible, not ideal. Let's see. So most of the radiation is held in the fallout, and most of the fallout is sand-like. So unless you're kicking a ton of it up on purpose, most of it is heavier than what can be blown around in the wind. So in most cases, yes, I mean, if you can put something over your face, then that's helpful. But like the full like bodysuit with the mask and all that stuff, it's not technically protecting you from radiation. What it's doing is just keeping the particles off of you so that when you get back to wherever you're going, you can keep those particles, you can get them off of you easily. because you're taking the suit off and the particles come off with it. Basically, if you wash yourself and you put like a t-shirt or something over your face, you're getting about the same protection as a mask, because the mask is basically just preventing the larger particles of like sand and stuff from getting in, and you don't really breathe that in anyway. So yeah, don't forget to like the stream. I'm not sure what is going on with the conference. We're 10 minutes past. I know that Autism Musician, if you heard all the nuclear talk, we're just talking about nuclear radiation in general. Nothing happened. So it wasn't like a nuclear bombing or anything. That probably sounded bad if you just came in on it. But no, nothing major has happened as far as that goes. All right, Karoline. Hey, Marty, how's it going? Yeah, exactly. Not saying that radiation isn't dangerous. It's just that the amount of radiation that you get exposed to from a nuclear blast after the initial blast goes down rapidly, whereas the radiation you get exposed to from a nuclear incident like 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl, that radiation hangs out and keeps getting produced by the nuclear reactor long term. So you're getting huge amounts of radiation that keeps getting pumped out. That's the main difference. Someone mentioned Canadian Prepper being awesome. I mean, he's definitely an acquired taste, just like anybody, just like myself even. But it's interesting because a lot of the stuff that he's been saying for years is not coming true. So a lot of people were giving him a hard time, saying he was, didn't know what he's talking about. He was dramatic. He was just selling drama. And now almost every single thing that he said would happen is happening right now. So, but he's, I followed him probably definitely before when he's doing more of the prepping stuff, when he's like testing out different products and all that. And then obviously, similar to my channel, that kind of morphed into like current events type stuff and like true crime. But yeah, Canadian Prepper, he's a good dude. He's, you know, sometimes he gets worked up about stuff, especially on X, but his information, the way he explains it, you know, his honesty as he talks about stuff, like you don't have to guess who he is, right? You know where he stands with everything. So I think those are good traits. Good morning, Moon Goddess. How are you? Thanks for being a member for 2 months. Much appreciated. I did look up the, let's see. Yeah. So I did look up the Kuwait fire. It looks like the airport fire. Looks like that was like 16 hours ago. I don't think there's anything definitive at this point, but I think it's being kind of ruled in as a terror attack of some sort for the Port Arthur fire. Pitsy, the live stream, this is real time. There's no delay that I can see. And when I slide all the way to the front, then it is still here. So as far as I can tell, they still haven't started yet. I'll look at another channel, but looks like it's real time. Let's see, what's going on with the fire in Nebraska? Zero coverage. Yeah, there's been zero coverage anywhere. No, I mean, no one cares about Nebraska until they don't have corn and wheat and soy and all that stuff, but 800,000 acres has burned. We have had a bunch of other states bring in hay and that kind of stuff for the horses and for the cows and all the livestock. And then it was primarily central and western Nebraska. And as far as I know, It was some pretty devastating damage. Took out a lot of ranches, but obviously western Nebraska is not super highly populated, so it just hit some select farms and select farms and ranches and stuff like that. So, it's not like California. We have all the celebrities, and the celebrities' houses are burning down, and you get 24/7 coverage from all the news stations. They could care less about Nebraska. I'm just looking to see if this is truly delayed, or for some reason this is like a looping weird stream or something I missed. It's a new live news. Let me see if the White House has something live. Yeah, the White House is still waiting too, so it's not just this. They haven't officially started yet. You said river is drying in Georgia. What's going on with that? Are they reservoirs? Yeah, Nebraska, they said that this fire started because conditions were so dry. Obviously is a huge part of it, but also because a power line or something went down and hit the dry ground. So I don't think this was necessarily like an arson event or something like that, but it is kind of strange, and it's the biggest one in history. Looks like we have some more missiles launched in Israel. Yeah, this is extremely late for them. Yeah. I mean, if it's Trump, then it's not unexpected to be 20, 30, 45 an hour late, but not typically for her. So hope everything's all right with her. I don't know how many months pregnant she is now, but I know that's not easy. You see, you thought Nebraska was flat? Yeah, that's what they tell people. There's so many hills, and there's the sand hills in western Nebraska. You feel like you're in the foothills of the mountains when you're driving through western Nebraska. Florida's flatter than Nebraska. Yeah, as far as boots on the ground, so I've heard there's at least 5,000 to 7,000 that may already be there at this point. But the thing I heard today that's troubling is there may be 3,000 paratroopers going in. So they're going to drop people by parachute over the war zone. Not good. Kuwait issued a radiation alert. Let's look at that. Yeah, Mungatis, I've gotten some emails and stuff too of people saying that they're getting deployed right now. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's see. Kuwait issues radiation warning for citizens as fear mounts, let's see, over Iran's Bushehr plant. Kuwaiti authorities warn residents about possible radiation exposure on Wednesday. Let's see, after attacks. I'm trying to see the distance. It looks like the closest nuclear reactor is 149 miles away, which would limit the impact of any potential leak. But it does say, yeah, they definitely have an official radiation exposure warning. Two separate attacks. IAEA says something struck the facility, most likely a drone. And obviously telling people to not bomb nuclear plants. That's their recommendation. Marty, that's funny. Let's see. Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv airport cam looks like it's back up. Unless they swapped it out with something else. They have Ben Gurion. Yeah. So Ben Gurion, Tel Aviv is back up. I think it was number 9 before, and that was down, but I think they've refreshed it. Yeah, you think it'd be common sense. Don't hit nuclear sites. Let's say together, don't bomb nuclear sites. All right, let me see. Depending on how long this is going to take, I might just do the news updates here shortly. All right, yeah, I'll just go ahead and start the news then while we're waiting. Major military escalations. Iran launched new waves of missiles at Israel, hitting Tel Aviv and other cities, causing injuries and structural damage. There's some major damage in certain areas and some big fires as well. Drone and missile strikes expanded regionally, hitting U.S. bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan. A drone strike caused a fire at Kuwait Airport. And that was the fire, I believe, was 16 hours ago. I'm not sure if it's still going right now. But that was a big story as well. Iran continues high-volume attacks, including cluster munitions used in multiple missile waves. Most of the strikes that I've seen... Oh, are we starting? Nope, she's just hanging out. Okay. But most of the strikes I've seen recently have looked like they're all cluster munitions at this point. Pentagon's preparing to deploy 3,000 troops. Oh, let's see, wait, 3,000? Yeah, 3,000 troops from the 82nd Airborne to the Middle East. Early deployments of 2,500 Marines and naval assets continue to reinforce the region. So initially they said like 5,000 to 10,000 Marines. They're saying officially right now it's 2,500 Marines. In addition to that, there's 3,000 more troops from the 82nd Airborne. So we're looking at 5,500 minimum right now. And that's just the troops themselves, not their support. So all the other Army, Navy, everyone that supports them, they're all going to be going with them. So it's a lot more people than just that. A lot of focus on Strait of Hormuz. They're trying to, there's no deal that's going to be made. The U.S. sent Iran a 15-point peace proposal. They want to end uranium enrichment. And I would have to agree with that one because they're enriched way beyond what they need for nuclear power plants. So they're quickly approaching weapons grade. And then they want them to halt their missile programs and reopen Hormuz. So, and obviously the proxies, they want them to have Hezbollah and Hamas to quit attacking Israel. And that's probably never going to happen either. But they received it and rejected it immediately. And it's still being reviewed. But it's basically accepted that they're like, no way in hell. We're not, like, it's not going to happen, period. And they're going through Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt is who they're actually having the talks with, or through, I should say. They're kind of doing it like in a proxy manner. And then Saudi Arabia and the UAE are moving closer to joining the war. We've been hearing that now for a couple weeks. Saudi Arabia is allowing the U.S. to use the King Fahd air base. So they have another place to take off and bomb from. And UAE is taking economic actions against Iranian-linked entities. Oil prices surged again, approaching and exceeding $100+ per gallon per barrel, or not per gallon per barrel, but per barrel. As far as fuel shortages and stuff goes, I've heard rumors that there's some shortages, but a lot of places are pulling from the reserves. And initially they were doing that to lower the prices, but it looks like it might be because of fuel shortages. So we'll hear more about that here probably shortly, next week or two. Countries are declaring energy emergencies, including the Philippines. There's been disruptions to shipping, food supply, and fertilizer exports. The U.S. briefly paused escalation after Gulf warnings about uncontrollable retaliation. Iran warned of unlimited retaliation if their infrastructure was hit. And so far, we haven't seen anything major around that specifically. But I mean, that's the big point of what's been going on. So we are still currently waiting. This is what are we at? 30 minutes past. Yeah, hit that like, share it around, subscribe if you're not subscribed already. And we're just waiting for this press conference to get started. And then we'll hit Iran war news after that. Shoot, at this rate, we could probably get the we could probably knock out the X clips before they actually come on stage. All right, let's see. Moon Goddess, thanks for that gifted membership. Yeah, someone's talking about billionaires making money from the war. War is good industry for a lot of people. A lot of people get extremely, extremely rich during war. And we just saw some strange, it almost seemed like insider trading around the, I believe it was the oil. And people made, there was like billions of dollars that were made during that short time period. That was recent. That was a few days ago. So we'll see. So either they have some bad news for us, or they're really trying to stall for something. And it looks like one of the cams. Okay, it's back up. It looked like the Israel cams were down for a second again. All right, it's official. The White House needs to play some theme music before, at least some elevator music or something. I thought I heard 2 minutes, but we'll see what they say. Hey, Spanish Show, how's it going?
Pretty good.
The people, so Wally, and I think the way it typically works is the people that make the weapons profit before the war, and obviously during the war if they need more weapons made, and then the people who start these wars and take over other nations and, you know, take their oil and resources and that kind of stuff, obviously make a bunch of money off of it too. Once you get into that wartime economy, anyone who's invested in those defense corporations and ammo makers and that kind of stuff are just cashing in. Yeah. Yeah, holy moly, there won't be any oxygen in that room in 2 minutes. Even worse, if they're all wearing separate colognes and perfumes and stuff, that gets pretty rough in there too. Oh, they zoomed. Is that her back there in the red? No, that's not her. Okay. Interesting. There must be something major going on here if they're delaying this much. I'm gonna look around and see, if there's anything going on here with any major attacks or anything. They could have found Nancy Guthrie by now, waiting on this. Which also, I think there's some big interview. I don't know if it was Brian Inton or News Nation or what, but I think there's some interview that she just did that they're supposed to be releasing here shortly. They had a couple snippets come out interviewing Savannah. Someone mentioned the USS Ford. Basically, what they say happened with that is that a major fire broke out on the USS Gerald Ford while it was in the Red Sea, and it burned for over 30 hours. There was like 200 different crew members that got smoke inhalation. You know, I don't no one died and there was no major injuries or anything, but they're saying that's what happened. And with the smoke inhalation, that makes more sense. If it was a missile or a drone externally hitting the ship, you would typically have your people stuck inside with smoke inhalation issues. But we don't know. We don't know what truly happened. But obviously it made them move out, made them back up. And I think it's getting worked on now. But I don't see any proof that a missile hit it. Yeah, I did see that. One of the IRGC spokespeople was telling Trump that he's fired. And they said they're not going to accept any of their requests, or I should say demands, of the U.S. with this ceasefire. And I think the ceasefire... Oh, there she is. And another pregnant lady.
Everybody. Good to see all of you. Thanks for coming today, as always. We're going to start with some scheduling announcements. This evening, President Trump will deliver remarks at Union Station for a political dinner. Tomorrow morning, the president will host the second cabinet meeting of the year and the 11th cabinet meeting of his second term. And later tomorrow afternoon, the president will host a Greek Independence Day celebration in the East Room. On Friday, the president will celebrate National Agriculture Day alongside nearly 1,000 farmers who are coming in from across the country for the first event of the season on the South Lawn, so pray for good weather, to highlight the president's successful policies in support of America's farmers, including efforts to lower input costs, open new trade markets, bolster the farm safety net, double the death tax exemption, end taxes on rural property loan interest, and create rural opportunity zones. Also, I'm pleased to announce that President Trump's meeting and long-awaited meeting with President Xi in China will now take place in Beijing on May 14th and 15th. First Lady Melania and President Trump will also host President Xi and Madam Peng for a reciprocal visit in Washington, D.C. at a later date to be announced this year. Turning to the ongoing military operations in Iran, the United States military continues to decimate the terrorist Iranian regime's offensive and defensive capabilities. Just over 3 weeks in, it's abundantly clear that Operation Epic Fury has been a resounding military triumph. More than 9,000 enemy targets have been struck to date. Compared to the start of the operation, Iran's ballistic missile attacks and drone attacks are down by roughly 90%. The United States is also annihilating the Iranian regime's navy. We have destroyed more than 140 of their naval vessels, including almost 50 mine layers. This is the largest elimination of a navy over a 3-week period since World War II. Again, let me reiterate, this is the largest elimination of a navy on the face of the planet in a 3-week period since World War II. We are systematically dismantling Iran's defense industrial base, which will prevent future threats to the region. Our military also remains laser focused on eliminating the regime's threat to the free flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz. Over the weekend, we dropped several 5,000-pound bombs on an underground facility used to store equipment, including anti-ship cruise missiles and mobile missile launchers positioned along the coastline of the strait. Our military efforts grow more successful with each passing day, steadily degrading Iran's ability to terrorize merchant ships. For all of these reasons, we are very close to meeting the core objectives of Operation Epic Fury, and this military mission continues unabated. From the outset, President Trump and the Department of War estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve this critical mission. 25 days in, the greatest military the world has ever known is ahead of schedule and performing exceptionally. Day by day, the Iranian regime is being crippled, and their ability to threaten the United States and our allies is being significantly weakened. Their ambitions of building a nuclear weapon have also been crushed to an even greater degree than they were in Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025. That's why you're beginning to see the regime look for an exit ramp. They recognize they are being crushed, their ability to attack American and ally forces, as well as their ability to defend their own territory is dwindling literally hour by hour. Following President Trump's powerful threat on Saturday evening, it was made clear to the United States that Iran wanted to talk. President Trump is willing to listen. As President Trump announced on Monday, the United States has been engaged over the last 3 days in productive conversations, which led the president to temporarily instruct the Department of War to postpone planned strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure only. The remaining elements of the Iranian regime have another opportunity to cooperate with President Trump, permanently abandon their nuclear ambitions, and cease actively threatening America and our allies. But the president's preference is always peace. There does not need to be any more death and destruction. But if Iran fails to accept the reality of the current moment, if they fail to understand that they have been defeated militarily and will continue to be, President Trump will ensure they are hit harder than they have ever been hit before. President Trump does not bluff, and he is prepared to unleash hell. Iran should not miscalculate again. Their last miscalculation cost them their senior leadership, their Navy, their Air Force, and their air defense system. Any violence beyond this point will be because the Iranian regime refused to understand they have already been defeated and refused to come to a deal. Here at home, we are now on day 40 of the Democrats' shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. Democrats in Congress are forcing American travelers to wait in hours-long lines at airports across the country, robbing TSA officers and other federal workers of their hard-earned paychecks that they use to feed their families, and causing billions of dollars in damage to our economy. A father of 3 recently told CBS News that he felt he had no other choice but to quit his job as a TSA officer and find other work as the Democrats' shutdown of DHS continues. This is the quote from the father, and I encourage everyone to listen. "I think the hardest thing is seeing the struggle that my wife was going through and not trying to bring more stress to her," the father of 3 said, "but seeing her cry every night, how am I going to feed my family? How am I going to survive?" For the Democrats in Congress, the cruelty of this shutdown is the point. Nearly 500 TSA officers have quit since the Democrat shutdown began. President Trump, to alleviate this pressure, made the decision to send some of our amazing ICE agents to help alleviate that stress and address the long wait times. And for all of the critics of this solution a few days ago when it was proposed by the president, it is yielding results. Wait times have improved since ICE arrived, and they are doing everything in their power to help their fellow federal service members. But it's important to take a step back and remember, why is this even happening in the first place? For nearly 6 weeks, Democrats in Congress have kept DHS shut down because they care more about illegal aliens than American citizens. You have Democrat elected representatives in states across the country who are willing to inflict massive pain on their own constituents to fight for illegal aliens who broke our nation's laws to come here. In recent days, we saw the deadly consequence of this deranged policy of Democrat open borders and an illegal alien-first agenda. A beautiful 18-year-old girl, Sheridan Gorman, she was shot and killed in Chicago last Thursday morning while walking in a park with friends. The suspect in custody for murdering her is a Venezuelan illegal alien who was caught and released at the border by the Biden administration in May of 2023. Why would the Biden administration catch and release a Venezuelan illegal alien? That is not happening anymore under this president. But there are still tens of thousands, if not millions, of these illegal aliens in our country who seek to do harm to innocent Americans, like this beautiful young woman whose family will now never be the same because of her death. To make matters even worse, this monster was also released from local custody again after a shoplifting arrest, where? In the sanctuary city of Chicago in June of 2023. Again, another innocent American citizen had her life stolen from her because Democrats embrace reckless open border policies and reckless sanctuary city policies, which put criminals back into American communities. How many more Americans have to die before the Democrats end this madness? President Trump's position is very clear. He wants the federal government opened, he wants the Department of Homeland Security funded, and he wants the Democrat shutdown to end immediately. The president will also continue to call on Democrat leaders in sanctuary cities and states like J.B. Pritzker, where this young, beautiful girl was murdered, to cooperate with ICE and stop releasing illegal alien criminals into American neighborhoods. It is for the safety of every American citizen, including all of the people in this room. With that, I will take your questions, and here in our new media seat today, we have Gabe Fleischer.
Thanks, Karoline.
Thanks, Gabe, for being here.
Thank you. I have 2 questions for you. First, if the war in Iran continues past this current round of peace talks, and with thousands of troops on their way to the Middle East, is there a point, either a number of ground troops or a number of days, at which the president will consider seeking authorization from Congress?
Well, as you know right now, that formal authorization from Congress is not necessary because we're currently in major combat operations in Iran. The Department of War and the President, as I said, estimated about a 4 to 6 week timeline for the full completion of these military combat operations. We're again on day 25 today. And as a courtesy, nevertheless, the administration did notify Congress, the Gang of 8, ahead of the launch of the operation 25 days ago. And we've also had our top national security officials go to Capitol Hill to brief lawmakers, again, out of courtesy and out of respect for them. So at this moment, it's unnecessary, but of course, the President and this administration will always abide by the law. Gabe, or do you have a follow-up?
Yes.
Sure, go ahead.
Second question. In my reporting, speak a lot to young voters, many of whom voted for President Trump for the first time in 2024, hoping to have no more wars and to have lower prices. Now, with the war taking place and with gas prices going up, curious what President Trump's message would be to those voters who kind of swung into his coalition in 2024, but maybe don't feel the administration's going as they had expected.
President Trump is doing this for you. He's doing this for young people so that we are no longer threatened by a rogue terrorist regime in the Middle East that seeks to kill the brave men and women who serve in our country in the Middle East, many of them young people themselves, young men and women who serve this country honorably in uniform and have been threatened, killed, and maimed by the rogue Iranian terrorist regime for 47 years. President Trump finally had the courage to step up and do what's right by our national security, our homeland security. As for the temporary short-term fluctuation in gas prices, the president has said once these combat operations are over, this administration is going to continue to unleash American energy dominance. We're continuing to do that every day, and we're going to see prices at the pump go back down, just as we have over the past year because of this president. And don't think for 1 second if the Democrats had their way, gas prices would be as they were under the previous administration, the Biden administration, record highs. This president is keeping them as low as he can during this short-term combat operation, and they're going to go right back down when this is over. Gabe.
Thank you, Caroline. Just within the past few hours, Iranian state TV has said that Iran has rejected the U.S.'s 15-point plan to end the war. What's the White House's response to that, and have these talks hit a dead end?
They have not. Talks continue. They are productive, as the president said on Monday, and they continue to be. However, I saw a 15-point plan that was floated in the media. I would caution reporters in this room from reporting about speculative points or speculative plans from anonymous sources. The White House never confirmed that full plan. There are elements of truth to it, but some of the stories I read were not entirely factual. So I am not going to negotiate on behalf of the president here at the podium. What I will tell you is these talks are ongoing. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details that have been exchanged between the United States and Iran at this time.
Well, yesterday the president mentioned a very big present that the Iranians had given the U.S. He wouldn't go into detail, but was it that ship that was carrying 2 million barrels of oil that made it through the Strait of Hormuz?
I'll let the president speak on that at the appropriate time.
And then finally, Caroline, today Iraq's government reportedly is planning to lodge a protest with the U.S. According to the Wall Street Journal. There was an attack in Iraq that hit a military clinic, killing 7 soldiers reportedly. What's the U.S.'s response to that? Was the U.S. responsible for that attack?
I'll have to check in with the Pentagon on that, and we'll get you an answer.
Thank you, Caroline. Too, if I may. Speaker Johnson today described the conflict as wrapping up, but the 82nd Airborne Division, they're typically deployed at the beginning of conflicts. So does the White House consider this conflict as wrapping up, or is it changing shape?
As I said at the beginning of my remarks, we are meeting our goals of Operation Epic Fury expeditiously. The president likes to maintain options at his disposal. It's the Pentagon's job to provide those options to the commander-in-chief. For any specifics on troop deployments, though, I would point you to the Pentagon.
And today, Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner reiterated threats to potentially arrest ICE agents that were sent in to assist with these historically long TSA lines. He said, quote, "The president cannot pardon you." Has the president seen Krasner's comments? Does he have any response?
The president cannot pardon you for what? He's talking to the ICE agents who are handing out water bottles and are helping people move through lines at airports. It's a disgraceful comment. The men and women of ICE are great people. I would encourage this lawmaker, whose name I don't know and don't care to know, to actually sit down and speak with the ICE agents who are on the ground doing this important work, not just in our nation's airports, but again, to remove violent, dangerous, illegal alien criminals from our country, to protect this individual and all of us in this room and Americans across the country from murderers, pedophiles, and rapists who have been allowed into our country by Democrat politicians. Mario, good to see you.
Thank you, Caroline. Good to see you as well. Just given that the president postponed his original trip to China because of the war, should we infer that the war will be wound down and concluded by the time of that May 15th, 14th visit?
Again, as I've said, we've always estimated approximately 4 to 6 weeks, so you could do the math on that, Mario, but we do look forward, I know the president looks forward to going to China on May 14th and 15th, and of course, as always, we'll provide additional logistical details details to all of you in the media for that trip, who I know look forward to coming with us as well.
One follow-up. Was that a precondition? Did the two leaders speak about the conclusion of the war? Was that a precondition for them to have this rescheduled meeting?
No, there was a discussion about the rescheduling of the meeting between the president and President Xi. President Xi understood that it's very important for the president to be here throughout these combat operations right now. He understood, obviously, the request to postpone and accepted it, which is why we have new dates on the books, and I'm happy to announce those to you today. Jennifer.
On the negotiations with Iran, are there still face-to-face talks planned perhaps in Pakistan? And who do you think would probably be going?
Again, I've seen a lot of speculation and reporting about potential talks that could happen later this week. Nothing should be deemed official until it is announced formally by the White House. I would not get ahead of our skis on reporting about any talks this weekend until you hear directly from us.
That all of the allies will go along with whatever the U.S. concludes with these Iranians? Are you expecting that Israel and all the other allies will follow whatever agreement is made?
I think the president has shown that he is absolutely the leader of the free world, the head of the most powerful military in the world, and in various examples, so the 12-day war between Iran and Israel, the ceasefire between Israel and Gaza, the president has shown a very unique skill at getting our allies to get on board with what's in the best interest of the United States, but also the world in cases of foreign policy like this. Ed.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. So, is there a time frame as to when the first oil tanker can go through the Strait of Hormuz freely?
It's a very good question, Ed. I don't have a specific timeline for you today, but it's obviously something the administration is working towards as quickly as we can. And with respect to oil, as you know, the administration has taken a number of actions to stabilize the markets. We directed the U.S. DFC to offer reasonably priced political risk insurance for takers through the strait. We issued that temporary waiver to allow countries to purchase sanctioned Russian oil to alleviate global pressures. We're working with the IEA to coordinate the release of another 400 million barrels. We issued that 60-day Jones Day Act waiver. And then just today, EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, if you missed it, in consultation with the Department of Energy, announced a temporary emergency fuel waiver to allow nationwide sales of E15, gasoline blended with 15% ethanol, to remove all federal impediments to selling E10 gasoline across the country. The emergency fuel waiver will temporarily waive the summer low volatility requirements and blending limitations for gasoline to provide additional flexibility to the fuel marketplace. So as far as tankers through the strait, something we're tracking very closely, but obviously the administration is coming up with creative new solutions by the day to keep the price of oil stable, something the president wants to see. And I know Secretary Bessent, Secretary Wright, Secretary Burgum, EPA Administrator Zeldin are all working together closely to find ways to do that.
The president gave that 5-day timeline for pause in operations. Would a tanker going through the Strait of Hormuz be one of the conditions that he would extend that?
That's only something the President of the United States can answer. I won't get ahead of him.
How about on TSA? Can I ask you about the TSA lines?
Sure.
Are the TSA lines, we've all seen the video of that from various airports, is that going to be what ends the stalemate in Congress to get DHS funded?
Well, look, it's the Democrats who have led to this stalemate over the past 6 weeks. The president and the Republicans' position has been very clear. Fund the Department of Homeland Security. And we have attempted in good faith numerous times, both the president himself and lawmakers on the Republican side on Capitol Hill, to go to the Democrats with reasonable offers, with real solutions. They'll ask for something, we'll give them that concession, and then they say, oh wait, that's not enough, actually. So I think that's why I said earlier, the cruelty is the point. They want this chaos. They want to distract, I think, from the success of our military overseas right now, totally obliterating the Iranian regime. And it's very unfortunate because there's only, the only people that are suffering from this are the American people. And I hear that Democrats might be flying out of town tomorrow. How convenient and lovely of them that.
So if you look at this kind of stuff and this, this back and forth, at what point and how many years in is it the responsibility of this administration and them not blaming the previous one? I know there's going to be some overlap, some laws and different things and all the people that came across the border and whatever else, but at some point they have to take responsibility for what they're doing. And, not everyone's going to agree, but it's interesting how they always say it's somebody else.
The president has made it very clear. He wants everyone on Capitol Hill to move as quickly as possible to get the Save America Act passed, and he wants to see that legislation on his desk as soon as Republicans and Democrats can move to pass it.
But are there any lawmakers in Congress that the president is frustrated with on this matter and feels could be doing a better job?
I think the president wants to see everybody on Capitol Hill move faster all the time. That he wants everyone in this town to work at Trump speed like we do here at the White House. Go to Karen.
Two questions on Lebanon, if I can. Is the U.S. providing support at this point for Israel's ongoing offensive in Lebanon? And is the president concerned that right now there are more than 1 million people who've been displaced and potentially could be for a significant amount of time?
That's not something I'm in a position to comment on for the first question. To the second question, of course, that's something that would concern the president. I think that's why he's again quickly moving to eliminate the threat of the Iranian regime in the Middle East, including weakening their proxies like Hezbollah, who have terrorized Lebanon for far too long. And I know that the president wants to see this, again, move as quickly as possible as we can over the course of the next couple of weeks here.
Kristen. Questions on the Strait of Hormuz. If these negotiations are not successful, is the only option to reopen the strait in boots on the ground, given that all of our allies have essentially said that they are unable or unwilling to help?
Look, that's a hypothetical question. It's a hypothetical question. It's also a decision that would have to be made by the commander-in-chief, and I'm not going to get ahead of him.
In addition to that, when it comes to the Vice President, J.D. Vance, what has changed that has made him more of an active participant in these negotiations with Iran?
I don't think anything has changed. The Vice President has always been a key member, the President's right-hand man, and a key member of the President's national security team. He's been part of these discussions throughout this entire course of the administration with respect, again, to the 12-day war that the President and his national security team negotiated a solution to, with respect to the ceasefire between Israel and Gaza and the release of the hostages, which there was a lot of criticism that couldn't get done, and it did. The Vice President has been by the President's side every step of the way, and any reporting otherwise is just completely false. I see him in the room. Again, the President seeks his counsel on all matters, both foreign and domestic.
Can you just tell us who exactly the U.S. is negotiating with in Iran, and why the U.S. and this administration trusts that person?
Again, as I said to Gabe's question earlier, we're not going to get into the details of these negotiations and conversations that continue to take place. As of course you can imagine, they are very sensitive diplomatic discussions. And I would reiterate, I do recall giving all of you the same answer when we were negotiating the ceasefire between Israel and Gaza. Gave you the same answer throughout the 12-day war between Iran and Israel. Gave you the same answer with respect to many of the other global conflicts that this administration has negotiated solutions to. President Trump is going to give his diplomats the freedom that they need to have these sensitive diplomatic discussions without negotiating and litigating them through the news media. Fran.
Caroline, just to follow up though, because you said that some of the information that's been out there about the 15-point plan is inaccurate, can you say what is accurate with respect to ballistic missiles, the nuclear ambitions, and the Strait of Hormuz, which are things that the president has laid out that he wants to see a couple times in the past?
Look, if you've heard it from the President of the United States, obviously it's true, as well as the objectives of Operation Epic Fury. We've said repeatedly, I've said them from this podium, the Pentagon has reiterated them. That's why we've taken military action to achieve them. So of course, those are goals that we want to see, but this full 15-point plan that's been floating around in many of your outlets, there's a lot of misinformation to that as well. And again, I would caution you from taking things from anonymous sources rather than verifying them directly with the White House. Christian.
Thanks, Caroline. Two on Iran. First, would the president consider loosening asylum restrictions for Iranians trying to flee the country right now?
Again, that's a question for the president. I won't get ahead of him on that. I haven't talked to him about that.
Okay. And then secondly, you mentioned at the top that Iran would be hit harder than they have been to this point if they don't recognize the fact that they're losing this war. Could those strikes happen before this 5-day negotiating window closes if the president doesn't think they're negotiating in good faith?
You're asking me to tell you if the commander-in-chief would authorize very strong strikes against the Iranian regime. That's not something I would ever reveal from this podium, true or not. Phil.
Here, in the back.
Thank you, Caroline. I was wondering if you would respond to some of this criticism of the administration from past allies like Joe Kent, who have said that the president's red line shifted from Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon to Iran cannot pursue nuclear enrichment. What is the administration's response to that criticism?
I think the president and I have both strongly responded to the criticism by Mr. Kent who unfortunately resigned in disgrace and accused the president of basically being controlled by foreign countries and foreign manipulation, which is a ridiculous and laughable assertion. So his accusations have zero credibility as far as this White House is concerned.
The question of the red line shifting from no nuclear weapon to no nuclear enrichment, is there any substance to that argument?
I think the president has been quite clear in what he wants to see from the Iranian regime, which is why he chose to launch Operation Epic Fury in the first place. Reagan.
Caroline, I have a question for you on the SAVE Act, and I'd like to follow up on the DHS shutdown.
Sure.
First, Senator
The
Mike
Save
Lee,
America Act.
Save America Act. The president corrected me yesterday. It was my fault. Senator Mike Lee said it's essentially impossible to pass the Save America Act through reconciliation. What's your reaction to that? Is the president worried that that strategy might fail?
I think he's willing to try all strategies. I spoke with him about this yesterday, and he said if we can make it work through reconciliation, let's absolutely do that. These, again, are common sense policies that are backed by the vast majority of voters across this country. The only people in this country who don't support them are politicians on Capitol Hill, and you all should ask them why they don't want voter ID, why they don't want proof of citizenship to vote in our nation's elections. Again, these are common sense proposals that are wildly popular, and the president is willing to use any means necessary to get this legislation passed and onto his desk.
And then on the DHS shutdown, do you expect deportations to decrease while ICE is in the airports? And what are the trade-offs of having ICE in the airports right now?
Well, to address this obviously short-term problem and the chaos that has been sowed by these Democrats on Capitol Hill, to address the lines and to get Americans traveling and get them to where they need to be. So the president, I think this was a creative solution, again, that was criticized, but we have seen wait times decrease, not as much as we'd like. Hopefully they will continue to, but at major airports over the course of the last few days as ICE has been facilitating with travelers in these airports. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. On March 6th, the president said in an interview with Reuters that the U.S. should have a role in choosing Iran's next leadership. Now that we're almost 4 weeks into the operation, is that still the president's assessment of where it should go?
As I've said repeatedly, I think the president obviously believes the United States wants to have someone in leadership position in the Iranian regime that will be much more favorable, that will be willing to work with the United States, that will no longer chant death to America. These would obviously be good common sense things for the United States and for our allies. I think that's what the president meant when he spoke with Reuters that day. Go ahead.
The president yesterday said that he had achieved regime change in Iran because the regime has changed. In terms of...
I mean, has it not?
Well, the leadership...
Their entire leadership has been killed, and nobody has really seen or legitimately heard from this alleged new leader. So wouldn't you say there's been a change in the regime?
There has been a change in leadership. I mean, do you feel as though...
There's been a change in the regime leadership, which is what the president said. So thank you for confirming he was right.
I mean, do you feel as though you've achieved leadership level, or the personnel in place right now in Iran that you're satisfied with? I mean, have you...
I think it's too soon to say.
In terms of highly enriched uranium in Iran right now, is your expectation, I mean, the stated desire of the president has been to prevent nuclear weapons. Is your expectation that the end game here is that eventually Americans will be in possession of that uranium, or you'll somehow have some direct control over the highly enriched uranium that could be used to develop it?
Again, this is a point of conversation that continues. I think you know the means in which the United States would have to take in order to achieve that goal, and that's a decision for the president to make. Brian, good to see you, Brian Glenn.
Good to see you as well. Does the White House have a comment on a letter that was sent from Congressman Raskin to the DOJ alleging that the DOJ recklessly released damning information in regards to President Trump's documents?
Yes, I saw that letter from Congressman Raskin this morning, who I would add has zero credibility, and this letter was clearly a cheap political stunt. What the congressman did here, Brian, and for everyone in the room who's hopefully not reporting on this as fact, is that he took untrue and salacious claims in a memo that was produced by Jack Smith, who has been completely discredited for his lawfare and his witch hunts against this president, and that information was unverified. It never even made it into the indictment because it was so unverified. And what happened to that indictment anyway? It was thrown out. And Jack Smith has been proven, again, to be a prosecutor on a witch hunt against President Trump. He tried to throw him in jail ahead of the 2024 election. The Biden Department of Justice was fully on board with this lawfare campaign. And in fact, this story that was concocted by Congressman Raskin was so ridiculous, I understand his communications team reached out to some outlets in this room who responsibly said, we're not going to write this because this is just too much. However, of course, MS Now did write that story this morning because they continue to be left-wing propaganda for the Democrat Party. But I think Jack Smith has been proven to be a liar and a fraud, and this is, again, a cheap political stunt from a Democrat on Capitol Hill who I think wants to get himself on cable television. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
There we go. What are your thoughts? Seem like a lot of the typical talking points. Nothing really new. Let me pull up Al Jazeera here really quick. I know that's the preference. Let's see if Live Now has anything going on too. Let me check. Yeah, everyone's just finishing up with that news conference, but I think Al Jazeera probably has moved on. Yay, commercials. All right, we'll pull this in. And then give me just a few minutes here, and then we can go over the clips.
New system was able to target an American F-18 above the province of Sistan Baluchistan. That's towards the southeast of Iran, close to the Indian Ocean. And then the plane fell into the ocean. This is what the Iranian IRGC said. However, this is not the first time that such reports are emerging. We've seen over the past few days, since the 19th of March, when Iran issued a video of an F-35 being hit. Then from the American side, there were reports of a landing that took place, and it was an emergency landing, and that the pilot was in good situation. However, he was being treated. The Americans did not give a final narrative with respect to the issue. The Iranians issued a video showing the plane F-35 being hit. And, you know, the significant thing here is that F-35 has never been hit in combat before. So this was the issue. Then reports arise from the Iranians on an F-16 being hit, another F-15 being hit. And finally, today, we're hearing of the F-18. We saw a video, but the video needs to be watched several times to make sure what happened really.
All right, let's thank also Ali Hashim there from the Iranian capital in Tehran. It's a good time, I think, to bring our guests into this and help pick apart some of the statements we're hearing dropping from the White House. Joining me on set, Nigar Mortazavi. She's Senior Non-Resident Fellow at the Center for International Policy, and Ross Harrison. He's a Senior Fellow too, but at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C., also the author of Decoding Iran's Foreign Policy. Good to have you both with us. So let's start, Ross, with the latest statements from the White House talking about unleashing hell. Is this the end of this short-lived indirect exchange of proposals, or is this just the beginning?
Well, Sammy, I didn't write a book called Decoding American Foreign Policy. I wrote a book called
Maybe you should have now.
Looks like we have some incoming here. I'll just let this sit here for a minute. Let's see here. Zero Griffin is Nightbot giving you a hard time. Old reliable Nightbot, always causing problems. Let's see. Yeah, I also want to ask a question. Is this the beginning of the fall of the American Empire? A lot of people think the American Empire has already fallen, and we're just kind of being propped up by interacting with other countries that have a lot of people installed here already, and they're basically playing puppet master. And it's not just one country, to be honest. And then it's very common, if you look back through history, any culture that has commonality with like LGBTQ and peak immorality and things like that, which I think the U.S. has hit and gone through, they typically, that's around the time they fall. So if you look back through other cultures historically, that's always kind of the precursor. Looks like we have some missiles incoming. Looking like they might be coming from Lebanon. They're northern Israel. Yeah, I've heard similar things to this, that war is used as like a reset, basically. Think of it as like a reset button. So anytime they want to change something drastically, instill new rules, new governments, like digital currency, that kind of stuff, they would typically have a war to do that. You know what, just for fun, while we're waiting on these cams, which, by the way, one of the questions I got in my both streams today was, like, are we basically giving credit to these cams that we use? So most of the cams are news, and they're free use. But as far as like this one here, this is Intel cams. I mean, I recommend everyone, obviously, if you have time, if all you care about is just the cam and nothing else, definitely go over there and check out Intel cams. They have Russia and they have Middle East right now. And obviously, it's the main cams that a lot of people are using right now across all of YouTube. But if it's something you're interested in, just the cameras, then definitely go over there and check them out. And it seems like it truly is 24/7. Anytime you refresh, they're still there. But I want to see, let's see what AI thinks. Let's ask Grok first. Let's see what Grok says. And actually, well, no, I don't want to share the screen because I want to leave the cams up. Missiles usually take anywhere from like 2 to 10 minutes to get into Israel if they're going to go. It looks like they might have been intercepted. At least a round of them. We'll see if any more come. But all right, let's see. Let's ask Grok. There's some shots in Lebanon, probably. Is the U.S. in a decline? Or actually, what's the exact wording I should use? Well, that's why I use multiple Tech Ladyfy. I use 3 different AIs. I'm going to see what each one of them says separately. Let's see. Is the U.S. in a decline and in a fall? Then we'll ask Chat, and we'll ask Claude. All right, let's see. The United States is not in an inevitable decline and fall like the Roman Empire or other historical powers that collapsed. America remains the world's leading economic and military power. Still dominant, but slowly, slowly risking. Let's see, I'm trying to see what the numbers are here. Largest GDP. China's growing faster. U.S. retains advantages. Fiscal health is a major red flag. So the debt held by the public has hit 101% of GDP in 2026. America's not collapsing, but it's living beyond its means. So think of it like a teenager with a credit card, blowing money on everything, but they can't pay it back. That's kind of what they're saying here. As far as U.S. military, so still number 1. Dominates as far as universities and education go. But there's deep political polarization, declining trust in institutions, rising pessimism, record low thriving rate which is interesting. Ask if it's a regime. Let's see. All right, let me see what it says for the final decline and fall. It says comparisons to Rome are popular but overstated. Rome faced barbarian invasions, hyperinflation, all this other stuff. Many decline stories amplify short-term political or cherry-picked metrics. So, Grok says no. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Economic power, relative decline. Military power is still dominant. Political stability, noticeable strain. Let's see, cultural and global influence, still extremely strong. Historical context, decline is rarely linear. All right, I will be right back, and we'll keep watching this cam here for a minute.
That we're not thinking of for some kind of quick operation in and out without casualties. Are we overplaying the risk?
I mean, I don't know. I think Iran has shown that they have a lot of cards. As Ross said, they can escalate in an asymmetric. And also we have to remember, they are defending their homeland. This is their neighborhood. They have geographic advantage over every front that we're talking about. And for them, winning is just not losing. There has been no regime change. Leadership has been replaced. No riots or protests in the country. Uranium has been intact. So from the viewpoint of the Iranians, they've done pretty well. They've overperformed. Right. They've inflicted enough pain on the Israeli side also. And on the U.S. side, if the president is saying, as he's saying, he's winning, then just take the win, take the victory, and exit the war. Why is this war continuing? That's the main question many in the region are asking, and also around the world.
Okay, very briefly, Ross, because I'm getting the word in my ear that we ought to wrap up.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things the Iranians are thinking about is post-war, too. This is a regime that had very little legitimacy before the war. They're thinking also about what they can do to say to the Iranian people that we may loosen up socially, but we were able to push back against the Americans and the Israelis. And I think even though the Iranians were not anti-Israeli or anti-American before, that may resonate with a nationalist Iranian population after the war.
With a caveat, of course, we don't really have reliable polls to know how popular or unpopular. All right, thank you, both of you, for coming in. Ross Harrison, Senior Fellow at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C., and Nagar Mortazavi, a Senior Fellow with the Center for International Policy. Thank you both.
Sam. Thank you, Nagar.
Now, Iran continued to strike targets inside Israel on Wednesday. An Iranian missile landed near the city of Haifa, sending a plume of smoke into the sky. Elsewhere, a missile caused a huge fire at a warehouse in the town of Yashresh. Noor Oda is in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. And Noor, let me start first of all, before we talk about strikes. Are we hearing from Israeli officials weighing in on this indirect exchange of messages, shall we call it, between the US and Iran about ending the war?
Well, we heard briefly from the Israeli Prime Minister, Sami. He was speaking to mayors and members of local councils in northern Israel, of the front line, so to speak. And a lot of what he said had to do with, being strong, staying strong, crushing Hezbollah and creating a buffer zone on Lebanese territory. But he also spoke about Iran and said that Israel has never been higher. Iran has never been lower. Take a listen at some of what he had to say.
We have created a genuine security zone that does not allow a ground infiltration towards the Galilee or the northern border. We are expanding the security zone to push the threat from anti-tank missiles on our communities and on our territory. We are simply creating a large buffer zone.
And Noor, we know that there's been some Iranian strikes on Israel today, including on some significant places like Eilat, right? Talk us through what that means for Israel.
Yeah, a lot of the targets, Sami, I mean, you look at the map, first of all, the geography. This is a very small country, and so everything is close to one another. But when you look at Eilat, this is a significant strategic city in Israel. It's a tourist destination, but it also has an important port. It has a base for the Israeli Navy. It's been the target of repeated Iranian strikes today and even before that. We saw also Haifa come under fire, the Khdera, where there is a power station that feeds Israel with about a fifth of its electricity. We saw yesterday Safad, also significant. It has very important intelligence assets and so on. And so the targets, although what we know is what is cleared by the Israeli military censor, but the targets are significant for the country in terms of psychology, in terms of what these locations mean, in terms of the density of the population, and then the damage that we see in Tel Aviv, in Dimona, and in others. It's been quite significant and increasingly so over the past few days.
And that's Noor Auda for us from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. A U.S. airstrike targeting Iraq's Popular Mobilization Forces has killed at least 7 people. 20 others were wounded in the attack in Al-Anbar province in the west. The Defense Ministry says a base used by the armed group and military personnel was hit. 15 fighters were killed when the same area was hit on Tuesday. In Kuwait, the UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Jordan have all issued a joint statement calling on Iraq to take all necessary measures to prevent attacks launched from its territory against neighboring countries. Let's bring in Rasul Sardar now. He joins us from the Saudi capital, Riyadh. So are we basically now seeing, Rasul, tensions rising not only between some of the Arab countries and Iran, but also with Iraq?
Indeed, Sami. So the war is expanding and the relations are coming under a huge pressure. Not only deteriorated relations between Riyadh, Doha, the Abu Dhabi or the other regional countries with Tehran, but now the war is affecting the region's relations with the other countries as well. So this is quite new. We have seen in the last couple of weeks, we have heard again and again the condemnations toward Iran's attacks on the regional countries. But now, for the first time, we're seeing that 5 GCC countries and plus Jordan coming and releasing a joint statement and calling on Iraq to stop Iran-affiliated armed groups from attacking to the regional countries. So here, it was a long statement, first condemning Iran and then saying that Iran is not only attacking the regions directly, but also indirectly through its affiliated militia groups, armed factions. And then also it is asking Baghdad to stop these attacks. And otherwise, it says that, well, it could affect the fraternal relations between the regional capitals and Baghdad. So that is quite new. For the first time, we are seeing a warning, a direct warning, and also warning about the consequences, about the further escalation. And then also, this is becoming more frequent, Sami, that more and more the GCC countries, individually or as joint statements, they are frequently referring to the Article 51 of the UN Charter, which is about the self-defense, individually or collectively. When a country is attacked, it's right to retaliate in a kind. So we're seeing that, and again, a reference to this article and saying that the GCC countries and the relevant capitals preserve their right to retaliate. But at the end of that statement, that is quite also an interesting element here. It's saying that Iran-aligned sleeper cells in these countries. And also the terrorist organizations affiliated with Hezbollah, they are planning the plots. So indeed, in recent weeks, we have heard reports that some of these groups, sleeper cells, were uncovered in Kuwait and in some other countries, but now there's a clear reference to them. So, Sami, this war has shown one thing, that Iran's missiles and the proxies in the region are not only a threat toward Israel, but also toward the regional countries. That's why they say there must be a limitation on Iran's missile program, and also Iran needs to disassociate itself from its proxies.
And that's Rasul Sarda for us from Riyadh.
Sworn in, so I think that makes it a little more difficult. Each one of us as members has relationships on the other side of the aisle. We try to, find a way to work through things, but I think that there's some bigger pieces at play that make it more difficult. Mike?
Thank you. Leader Jeffries has said that there's another war powers resolution that's coming. Can you update us on the timing of that and how it might be different from the first in terms of what it stipulates in terms of the text?
I think our Democratic colleagues are having conversations. We're having conversations with each other. We're finding out more about the president's lack of strategy on the war, and so I think we're making significant progress. Ranking Member Meeks guides the decision and the timeline as to when that measure, when we will invoke privilege to force a vote. So he'd be the better person to ask about that. But I think we're making progress. But look, this isn't unlike Republicans who continue to put up the same DHS bill every week. The only thing they changed, by the way, back to Max's question, the only thing they changed is they put Juan Ciscomani's name on it. Oh, by the way, Juan Ciscomani is an endangered Republican who wants to, show that he's doing something back home, rather than Tom Cole carrying this, or Homeland Security Appropriations Committee members. So, that's the difference. That's what's changed here, Mike. And so, I think the unfortunate part is Republicans, inability to craft a strategy and to bring the American people, the American public, and our allies along. And so we're going to continue to have these conversations, and I know we have some recess planned, but I would imagine shortly after the recess we'll be in a position to make some announcements on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A short while ago, the President reiterated his suggestion that he would send and deploy the National Guard to airports nationwide. So I am wondering if this will move the needle in any way with regards to how the progress of the reconciliation.
Members, I haven't seen the report, so I can't comment much on it other than to say, just like individuals who are deployed to airports that are ICE, National Guard individuals are not trained in our screening practices and protocols. They don't have any knowledge or training on ID verification or the important aspects of the work that TSA does every day to keep Americans safe. This is just something that the president wants to do to try to show the American people that he's doing something, when in reality we know what he is doing. He is choosing not to fund the TSA. He is choosing to exacerbate the pain that individuals at airports are seeing on a daily basis. Last question.
If a deal is not reached soon on DHS or ICE, Republicans are starting to talk about using reconciliation for ICE. So what is your red line for ICE reforms in this current round of negotiations, and is your caucus prepared for none of those reforms to happen if this goes through reconciliation?
This is we have engaged in good faith offers. We have sent very clearly the reforms that we want needed. Democrats don't believe in funding a rogue ICE agency without reform. That is our position. And that means within the Homeland Security bill, that means within a reconciliation, that means you don't get additional funding unless you stop terrorizing communities, separating children, and killing U.S. citizens. Like that's our red line. Now we've got a lot of strategies and solutions on how to get there, and we're having conversations about that. But whatever vehicle Republicans choose to fund ICE needs to have reform, and if it doesn't have reform, it's not going to get votes on our side. Now, I can't speak to how Senate Democrats feel on this, but I can speak to how House Democrats feel on it, and that is overwhelmingly the sentiment that we have. So we look forward to finding a resolution. We look forward and are hopeful that the administration decides to engage in real reform efforts under the new secretary. And we hope, in the meantime, that the administration chooses to fund TSA agents and other critical services that DHS provides rather than intentionally leaving them out in the cold. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, you were listening to House Democratic Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar taking a number of questions there. Welcome back. Welcome back into Live Now from Fox. I'm Ryan Schmelz. He took a number of questions, especially related to DHS funding. He seemed to indicate there that Democrats would support a deal to fund the Department of Homeland Security, except for ICE. But it appears that the Senate Republicans have actually made that offer, and that offer has been rejected. And also, we should probably keep in mind that Aguilar's comments right there did come before we learned that House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries had indicated that Democrats
buck the president on this. So that could change if two things happen. If the prices of gas continue to climb, they're driving prices up for pretty much everything. And then the other thing is if he invokes ground forces. If you look at one poll, about half Republicans say that for them would be a step too far.
All right, Patty Culhane joining us from Capitol Hill, and Kimberly Halkett at the White House. Thank you both. The Trump administration's already sent Iran a list of conditions to end the conflict. They may deny it, but Tehran says it's already rejected the 15-point proposal, leaving the United States to weigh up its next move. Here's Richard Gaisford.
He's the president who always wants to win, but to do that in Iran, does he need to change his approach to the game? The ball is in play, and Trump's presidential seal is stamped all over it. With what many perceive to be an unclear strategy, the president might be about to reshape his support team and his tactics to try and achieve a rare hole-in-one. It's reported Donald Trump's golf partner Steve Witkoff, his special envoy to the Middle East, and son-in-law Jared Kushner could be handing over lead negotiations to J.D. Vance, who's seen as a skeptic about the war.
Our interest, I think, very much is in not going to war with Iran. Right. It would be huge distraction of resources. It would be
that was less than 2 years ago. Could the vice president now be the man to help end it?
Nobody likes war, right? And I guarantee the president of the United States.
All right, I just finished up talking to Barron there. Tell Barron to jump on. I see that. Hey, he asked before, right? When we did we were doing the court coverage for the Tyler Robinson case, and I just sent him a message, and I was like, hey, man, you should jump on real quick because we're doing this court stuff. Obviously, you were a lawyer, so give us some pointers, some feedback. And about 15, 20 minutes later, he jumped on. He was on for probably a good, 45 minutes or an hour or something. But he's prepping for a big show tonight, so he's not going to have time right now. All right, so let's go ahead and do, so obviously we've seen, wait, is this a new press conference with, I just saw Netanyahu over here, so I didn't know if there's a new press conference from him.
Military in order to realize the goals of the war and a deal that will.
I just saw him shaking Trump's hand and all that stuff, so I just wanted to see what was going on with that. All right, so let's go ahead and do clips. So we did the news earlier. I'm not sure who all caught it, so I don't know if you want me to kind of go through the top points again really quick. But there wasn't a ton going on. for the most part. Obviously, oil's going up. We've had some fires at a Kuwait Air Base, an airplane hangar, and it was on fire last night, about 16 hours ago. They've been attacking everywhere again, including Bahrain. We had some major attacks in Israel, and obviously they're consistently, basically nonstop attacking Iran, mostly Tehran. So if we look at all of those things, not a lot of stuff has really changed, but I can go through the top points overview really quick here again. Excuse me. Allergies are kicking in. We have nice weather. Nice weather and allergies at the same time. So as far as deployment, we knew previously we had Marines go out. So the U.S. is deploying 2,000 to 3,000 troops from the 82nd Airborne Division. There's an additional 4,500, including Marines, an expeditionary unit. And then the latest number I've seen is in total, including the aircraft carriers and everything that's already there, all the pilots, everything, is like 50,000 U.S. troops are there, which is insane. The big issue is ground troops, because obviously we have all these other people there operating somewhat in safety, right? Everything's happening from a distance. But if we send in troops, obviously it puts them directly in path, and we can lose a lot more people. U.S. airstrikes have hit many Iranian assets, including oil infrastructure, and we know that was a deal breaker for Iran. And the ceasefire is basically a no-go, no matter how you look at it. There was a 15-point peace plan aimed at ending the war. This is what the U.S. and Israel wanted from their end. They wanted to end the nuclear program altogether, stop missile development, reduce proxy activity. I heard initially it was to stop proxy activity. That would be Hezbollah and Hamas, and then reopening the Strait of Hormuz. That is the main demands. The response from Iran is basically that they're reviewing it, but that it's unreasonable. So they're already planning to reject it. I'm not sure exactly what they would accept, but this is kind of the same talking points that we saw before when they rejected this before the war started. So I don't expect much to change, to be honest. And then we also have ongoing combat, Israel and U.S. strikes in Iran, Iran launching missiles into Israel. We have Lebanon, Hezbollah launching into Israel. We have our Gulf states that are getting hit, Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, and we have oil. Oil has actually dropped about 3%, but some of it's still over $100 a barrel. Hundreds of millions of barrels have been cut from the market. Japan's requesting emergency reserves. Saudi exports are shifting routes. Europe is facing economic pressure. And I heard that the Philippines are also basically calling a energy crisis based on the oil situation. As far as civilians go, this is in Iran. They're saying 1,500 official deaths, possibly 3,000 plus in reality. I don't know how many of those is like civilian versus military or, leadership, the IRGC. But schools are closed. Internet has been restricted or completely gone for several days, several weeks, to be honest, now at this point. And people are fleeing the country. So that's kind of the big picture. The Iran war is at a tipping point, and U.S. troops are being deployed. Strikes are intensifying, and then the peace is not looking good at the moment. So that's kind of our summary there. Let's go ahead and jump over into our clips. All right, let me zoom in here. Okay, so we'll just go through. The unfortunate thing is these aren't in like the order I would want them to be in, but the information's all there. So again, there's about 50,000 troops that are assigned to the overall Epic Fury. 50,000, I think, was before the latest. So that could be, 5,500, 60,000, somewhere in there. We obviously have our B-2s. Karoline Leavitt just said they sent, I thought she said 10,000 pound bombs, but she said there's been several bomb runs that have happened from the B-52s and the B-1s. So they're playing a huge role, and the fact that they're, 70 years old is pretty impressive, to be honest. The IRGC is still putting pictures of Trump. I don't know if you can see him there, but they're still putting memes and different things on the missiles. They're still putting funny sayings and stuff from him. So they're trying to clown him, right? And then one of them said that he was fired in one of their X posts. We have more attacks, more stuff being destroyed. CENTCOM, which is Central Command, they release these videos semi-regularly showing the destruction of different targets inside Iran. And we'll see, too, that Trump gets like a daily kind of like highlights reel of everything that's happened. We have direct missile impacts in Israel. So a lot of these are happening in open areas, but a few have hit highly populated areas. And obviously you hope they all get down into their bunkers. That's why they have the alert system. And then it looks like whoever the spokesperson is, this person looks like they're going to get fired. So it looks like it's the prime minister's spokesperson. Last night he said there will be no situation in which he won't be fired. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that, but this guy that's always with him is supposed to be gone. I don't know what he said or did. I just keep seeing that everywhere. We have lots of attacks going out. I'll let him talk.
Joining us now is John Bolton. He was President Trump's national security advisor in his first term. He's also the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Ambassador Bolton, thanks so much for joining us. As you know, Iran denies there's been any dialogue with the U.S., but what do you make of these talks between the two countries based on what President Trump is saying?
Well, both Qatar and Oman also deny that they're engaged in any mediation, so I'm not sure where the talks were. I think it's pretty clear, though, that the Asian markets overnight took a pretty big hit. The Nikkei average in Tokyo was down 3.5%, so was the Shanghai exchange average down about 3.5%. So it's certainly convenient that there were productive talks going on so that our markets would come back up in terms of price of stocks and down the price of oil. I hope that's right. We'll find out soon enough. But I think the basic problem remains the regime. Is as long as they're there, they now have palpable proof that if they close the Strait of Hormuz, the world's economy suffers. So
and their economy thrives. The latest numbers that I've seen is they want to charge $2 million per tanker, and they have been on some of them. And if the numbers were added up completely, they could make up to $100 billion per year just charging $2 million per tanker that goes through there. So that's insane. And obviously that could fund them very well for a long time. And is that reasonable? I mean, I don't know. Let me see. Let me look up how much an average tanker. Let me see how much they make on average. Let's see, average tank. Trying to see if I can get an actual number once they sell everything out of that. Let's see. So it says a large crude oil carrier can net over 10 million to 26 million of profit on a single 30-day voyage. So basically, if they made 10 million and they pay 2 to Iran to go through the Strait of Hormuz, they're making 8. They're still doing pretty well. Do I think that Iran should be charging for all that stuff? Probably not. But, if they're managing it and they're in charge of it, they're going to do what they're going to do. Someone says that this little island here, this Leavitt Island, is even more important than Karg. It has IRGC naval bases, port infrastructure, and control over ship screening. So this is a choke point. So this might be something we'll see them hit as well, in addition to possibly going to Karg Island. And that's most likely what the troops would be for on the ground initially. And then obviously those same troops would be used to secure, nuclear facilities, the uranium, if they know where it's at and all that kind of stuff. We already know they officially rejected the 14-point peace plan. Germany says they are happy to get involved once the war is done. So good to know. Good to know they have our back. This is an Iranian ballistic missile hitting near Dimona. Direct hit, huge explosion. And obviously I don't show, for anyone that's new here, I don't show any gore. So you're never going to see bodies or blood or anything like that. It's just the mechanical explosions. I don't like, obviously YouTube doesn't like that, but I don't like that either to show it. And then we did have some more U.S. strikes in Ecuador. There was one, I can't 100% confirm it, but I'll bring it up. Supposedly there was a dairy farm or like a dairy hut or something that they were saying was related to the cartel, and the U.S. blew it up. So I don't know if more is going to come out on that, if that was a legitimate target or not. But that was pretty interesting. And then Homefront Command in Israel, they're showing this video telling people to avoid any kind of like falling debris and trying to show the importance of how hurt you can get if you aren't if you aren't listening to the warnings. But I mean, you see these huge chunks of glass, stone, bricks, rocks, cars flying around. So they're just trying to raise awareness to people to really pay attention. We have another IRGC official, Masib Katiri, was killed. Obviously, they're going after the leadership. And then Trump is saying that the most successful strikes on Iran were over the previous 48 hours. So I'm not sure exactly what all they hit. I'm not sure if we'll get to see it all, but I think Central Command will release most of that. And then we have more operatives that are being killed. The good thing is that Israel does seem to warn ahead of time. So anytime they're going to hit apartment buildings or neighborhoods, they are doing a good job of either dropping flyers, which I've shown videos of recently, and or they'll like hack into their apps and send out a message saying, hey, we're going to hit this area soon. Or they knock, where they have a smaller munition that blows up above an area they're going to hit, and that gives you a hint, like you better get out of there, right? This is interesting to me. This is the UN Human Rights Council. They are condemning the Iranian strikes on the Gulf and calling for reparations. And if you remember, Iran is asking for reparations for this war, for what the U.S. has done to them. So I found that very interesting, especially considering that it doesn't seem like the U.S. and Trump are on really good, really good terms with the UN. So that is interesting. And then we have nuclear safety guidelines. This was from the from Kuwait. There was the official order that went out in Kuwait in a certain area, a nuclear radiation warning. And they're saying there's no need to panic. Do not leave your home, but seal all windows and doors. So to me, if someone's telling me to seal my windows and doors and there might be nuclear radiation, I don't see that as just a warning. That's emergency. So, and this is the kind of stuff that, you know, this could happen in the U.S. as well. But obviously right now it's happening to them. But that's why you want to have as much stuff prepped as you can, if possible. This is an explosion at a gas station. Huge explosions, waste of gas, makes prices go up even more. We have, we already know about Saudi Arabia allowing us to use their air bases. So they're not officially in the war yet. They're not officially attacking, but they are allowing us to use their military facilities, which to me is basically the same thing. We have a huge fire. This was in South Africa, but the reason why I'm showing it is because it was government buildings. So is this another terror attack?
Unfortunately, to collapse.
You know, we're seeing a lot of these type of things, just like the Port Arthur fire in Texas. We're seeing a lot of these strange, it seems to be fires. That seems to be the theme, but they're burning stuff down, and we're seeing a lot of that. We have some more cluster munitions from Iran. And if you don't know what that is, it's a missile that splits into a bunch of other fragments. I've heard anywhere from 24 to 80, and each fragment is big enough to take out a car. Or powerful enough, I should say. I don't know if it's that size, but we're seeing a lot of these. So, a lot of that going on. Not good. We've also had a lot of interceptions. You can see each spot. There's probably, what, 20 20 different interceptions happening at $1 million plus a pop. They have been using the laser a lot. So I thought I had a post on that, but I might have not saved it. We have a power plant that got hit in Western Israel. Pretty big strike on there. So there's a lot of damage happening both ways. And, people tell me, like I'm not one-sided. I'm not like, go Iran or, go Israel or whatever. Like, war is terrible either way. But I want to show you what's going on realistically so that you can see what's actually happening and not just propaganda that's being pushed out. That's my goal. And U.S. is banning all foreign-made internet routers. I agree with this. We know that they've, in the past, China especially, we know that they've sold us equipment, or I should say we bought equipment from them for our electric infrastructure in the U.S., our power grid, that they can hack into and shut down at any point. And there's even some rumors that some of them could be exploded remotely. So why would we want things like our banners? Internet router is something that's so important, not even just for national security. Why would you want like a Chinese made or, name the country? Why would you want them to be controlling our data? How do we know they can't see all of it? Maybe they have a backdoor built in where all the data that goes through, they can tap into it anytime. We don't know. Pete Haig said this, saying they negotiate with bombs. So his rhetoric hasn't really changed. He came in as the guy doing push-ups and running and hanging out with the troops and everything, which, it's admirable, right? You have a military commander that is, walking the walk, right? So very interesting. But I don't know. I don't know if that's always a good thing. But now when things happen, right, if we do go to war, this is what you want, because you want someone who's going to actually do what they need to do to protect the nation. We have some airstrikes that hit Shiite military in Iraq. There's been a lot going on with Iraq. If you look through the news and go through different things, there's a lot of fires, a lot of attacks. It seems like a decent amount of deaths that have happened there as well. And we've also had some of our allies and stuff have pulled out of there, including us, I believe. I think we pulled out of some places too. So I'm not sure exactly what's happening there, or if maybe there's less air defense. I'm not sure exactly why, but it seems like a bad place to be compared to the other ones. So I think that is the majority of our clips. I just want to make sure. This is one thing I wanted to bring up too. A lot of you have talked to about doing UAP coverage. There is all the talks that were happening. We had all the talks that were happening recently around, disclosure about like aliens. I don't know if that means like alien bodies and, us having them in our possession and that type of thing. But a lot of you haven't even seen the previous disclosure that happened with UAPs and UFOs, like interviews and footage of the actual crafts that they filmed. They've done case studies on them and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if you guys are interested in that. I know a lot of people are, but I'm probably going to do some live streams on that because there's a ton there. There's a ton of information there. And it's very interesting. Even the U.S. trying to make their own UFO, like actual footage of them back then in black and white, trying to like get a saucer hovering and that kind of thing. But this guy right here, multiple members of Congress are warning that the disappearance of an Air Force general known as the UFO gatekeeper could be a national security risk. So I don't know what his, was he kidnapped? Is he dead? Does he have some knowledge that if he was kidnapped and tortured, that would be a national security risk? But we've been seeing lately quite a few of these people who are related to UFOs and UAPs and that type of thing have been disappearing, along with scientists that were studying. I'm trying to think what exactly it was. There was something something they all had in common. I think it was like, I don't know if it was CERN related stuff or something similar, but it was like 9 scientists in a couple of years or something, and they were all top of the game researching that area, but also like alternative fuels. Those scientists have been getting hit as well. So I don't know exactly what's going on. Obviously, we can all guess, but It just seems like there's something sketchy going on there. So I just want to double check if there's any news I might have missed since we've been going over that stuff just now. And make sure you guys hit that like, subscribe, share this around. If you want to contact me, you can hit me up on X, TriggerSmart HQ, or send me an email, engcwarrior@gmail.com. And I also have a second channel. It's Off Script Radio. It's OFF Script Radio. And it's basically 24/7 monitoring. Currently, it is the Iran war, but I'm also going to add Russia and Ukraine. And if we have any other conflicts and things that pop up, I will probably put up some kind of streams for those as well. So definitely check that out. There's some awesome people that sit over there and talk and chat and hang out. And it's set up to automate. So like right now, if any warnings come in, it'll automatically switch to those cams so you can see what's happening. So if there's interceptions or something going on, it'll automatically put you in the right cam, even if you're on the dashboard or somewhere else. So it's a pretty slick setup. Just checking chat. 1711 Axe, thanks for becoming a member. Moon Goddess, thanks for that membership. Always Gloves, thanks for the super. Appreciate all that you do. Surrendered, thanks for the super. They're trying to contain us in their rat maze. All right, awesome. Yeah, so just really quick in chat. If you prep, and this doesn't mean it has to be like on a big scale, but if you're in general a prepper, just like some basic food and water, maybe like 72 hours or something worth, and like a crank radio, pocket knife, that kind of stuff. If you do that kind of stuff, put a 1 in chat. And if you don't do any of that, or if you want to do it, can you put a 2? I'm actually curious to see how the audience is split. Seems like we got mostly 1s. Someone said they can go a month without food. Yeah, it's good. It's good to see. I think if you would ask people a year ago, actually, if you would ask people before 2019, most people probably would have said no. But I have a couple of friends that have the whole, they have like the, what do they call that? Kind of like a ranch setup out in the country, propane tanks, 4 or 5 years worth of food and water. They have a well. Some have like a stream in their backyard. And one of them is butted up right against a national forest so they can hunt. Obviously, deer and animals are going to go quick if something happens. If the world, if SHTF happened, the animals are gone. Like, they'll be gone within weeks. People will overhunt them, and that'll be the only food they'll be able to eat because they didn't plan ahead. All right. Let's check our intel here really quick. I want to see if anything's actually going on. So as far as flights, military, we have some stratotankers. We have, this is interesting. So we have a bunch of stratotankers coming in from the Strait of Hormuz. Interesting. So we have those fires and things happening in Kuwait. And then we have the stratotankers coming out, turn the transponders on as they come through here. We have 3 that are stacked on top of each other. So maybe they just got done doing a run. We have our Globemasters doing heavy transport. Hercules the same. We have a Gulfstream. So maybe that's some kind of big wig going on there. We have some Beach and other ISR. We have these drones from earlier doing some interesting patterns, but not in this area. So I don't see a lot going on besides obviously the refueling. I do want to check the U.S. though. I always go back and check our coasts because we've definitely had some interesting activity off the coast, usually mostly around looking for subs. So let's look for our hunters. Let's see if anything's going on there. And this isn't like a super uncommon thing. There are times where multiple times a year, you'll see these Poseidon planes looking for subs off our coast. We have this one down here, past Puerto Rico. Maybe going to the other side of Cuba or something. Not sure what's going on with that one. And they were circling off the east coast of Florida over here a little bit. Obviously, they have to protect Mar-a-Lago and President Trump if he's over there. That one was circling over by Carolina Beach. Yeah, doesn't seem like a lot going on as far as that stuff goes. And I know Moon Goddess always asks me to check the Bering Sea. Let's check this over here really quick. We have our transport. We have a couple ISR and recon planes. Yeah, a beach, another one doing recon. So yeah, there's not anything going on over here. And if there is, they have the transponders off. So I wouldn't worry about that. Strait of Hormuz, pretty much business as usual. A lot going in, a lot going out. Paying that, $2 million, depending on who you are and what you're doing. Everything's quiet with the pizza index. For those that don't know, pizza index is basically used to see how busy the Pentagon is. The higher these go, the more busy that these pizza places are above average. It's kind of an indicator, or can be used as an indicator for what's going on in the government in that area. And this is specifically around the Pentagon, not just like globally. This isn't like worldwide. We do have some interesting stuff going on. So these, the real-time radiation, these are sensors. And at any given time, we will have 3 or 4 that are this way, that are like very elevated. And I don't know what causes that specifically. You basically just look to see in areas that are usually green. If you see a red, then there might be a little concern. But like at the beginning of this whole conflict, we had we had one in the UAE that was over here by Dubai, and that one's fine now. So I don't know if they do some kind of off gassing or something that causes those readings to happen that way. But as of right now, basically, it's kind of high. But basically, it looks like business as usual. It does seem that they tend to cluster kind of around the Great Lakes East Coast area. A lot of the reds, which is interesting. I know they have quite a bit going on there. There's also a uranium mine that's over there. So that could be part of it. Earthquakes, we had one in Greece. Nothing major in this area recently. We did have some in near Shiraz and Avaz in Iran. And of course, the concern is that if you have earthquakes in that area, that there may be the possibility that they did some testing of something. So obviously it's not proven, but that is the theory by some people. We've also had a lot of talks. Let's see. It looks like Western Iran, mostly. Some missiles, some drones. Looks like we've had, let me come over here. 7 people were injured in the latest ballistic missile attack. That was 21 hours ago, cluster bomb. So I think we saw that. Just want to make sure I don't miss anything here. And then Netanyahu, the campaign with Iran is still ongoing, contrary to what is being reported in the media. So again, we know that the U.S. is looking for an off-ramp, and it sounds like Netanyahu and Israel are not ready for that yet. And obviously it's more existential to them, so that would make sense. And then as far as gas goes, there is a better, here we go. So this one here, so any of the red is the price is going down, green's going up. So for the most part, it's going down. And even the up is only, 2%. So overall, it's staying pretty stable. Nothing crazy happening with that. But again, they're releasing from their reserves to keep the price more under control. So we'll see what happens with that long term. All right, so that's the clips. That's the news. If you want, I can stay on for another probably 20, 30 minutes if you want to hang out and just monitor and see if anything happens with Israel, with any incoming missiles or anything like that, or Beirut. And then around 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, I'll probably call it. So if you want to hang out, you're more than welcome. We're just going to watch Al Jazeera, and then we'll be monitoring the cams as well and the alarms.
A deal was within reach, only to then wake up to the news for many of us that the United States and Israel had launched the strikes on Iran. And this is very similar, as the U.S. president is saying that there is opportunity to negotiate, that there have been 3 days of what he called productive conversations, and that there had been a pivot to a postponement of strikes on the power plants as well as the energy infrastructure. What we know is that the United States has a presence of 50,000 U.S. troops, according to U.S. Central Command, and counting. What we know is there are 200 combat aircraft, 2 active naval carriers, and adding to that is a supplement of a component of the 82nd Airborne that would add another 1,000 soldiers, and 2 Marine Expeditionary Units that would add another 5,000 Marines and sailors. So you have to watch what the United States is doing, often more than what it is saying.
Hey, Mungaras, I will look into that, what you sent me, a little bit more in depth. And then maybe that's something we could do, is on one of these lives we can cover that narrative credibility index. I think it could be useful to a lot of people.
Weekend to meet with U.S. rather Iranian representatives, but she didn't rule it out either. All she would say is that with regard to talks in Islamabad, she said talks could happen.
Let's go back to Ali. One of the lines also just dropping, Ali, is from the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament saying they have intel that the U.S. is going to try and seize an island, and interestingly saying with the help of a regional country, and they will retaliate against that country. What do we understand from that?
Well, probably he's hinting towards Khark Island, or there might be thoughts or indications it could be one of the 3 islands, tomb, the greater tomb or a smaller tomb, or Abu Musa. So we don't know. I mean, he's just saying without naming. If it's about the tombs and Abu Musa, then because there is an Emirati claim for these islands, he might be hinting towards Emirates. Well, we cannot confirm. It's just analysis. It's only speculation. If it's Khark Island, then this is another issue. But it's all related to the troops coming to the region. I think this is the main issue. This is what the Iranians are heavily concerned. They think that there might be some invasion or attack on one of these islands, and an attempt to change the geopolitical posture there. And to them, this could mean a turning point in the war, because it would mean that they are under, even if this is a small island or a big island, that means part of their own territories is under occupation, and that would have its own impact on the state, on people, on how Iran views the conflict completely, because a conflict without losing territories is something, and a conflict when losing territory is something else.
All right, let's thank Ali Hashim there in Tehran and Kimberly Halkett earlier from Washington, D.C. Let's discuss the latest developments with my guests. Rob Geist-Pinfold is a lecturer in international security at King's College in London. He joins us now from the British capital, and here in the studio, we're delighted to have Dania Dhafir, Executive Director of the Gulf International Forum, and that's a think tank based in Washington, D.C. Let me start with Rob, if I may. So, Rob, we heard from Karoline Leavitt saying that basically the U.S. has achieved victory, and that's what's prompted the U.S. outreach. Has it achieved victory? Remember that Donald Trump's definition of victory was unconditional surrender. And if you've got unconditional surrender, you don't usually try and negotiate with the enemy terms of a conflict or terms to end the conflict?
Well, I'd be very, very skeptical that we're going to see anything like a quote-unquote unconditional surrender from Iran. However, I would argue that if I were in the circles of power in the US, this would be a good time to wind down the war. Yes, Iran's military capacities and ability to cause trouble throughout the region have not been destroyed, but they have been severely degraded. So, you know, you can basically bank all those shock and awe pictures of the US blowing up the Iranian Navy, destroying Iranian military forces and nuclear installations, and basically try and sell that as a win. So it's in the US interest, I would argue, to end this thing now. The problem is that coming at this from the other angle, it is not in Iran's interest to do so. Now, Iran has struck all the Gulf states, as we know, and I don't think that's a defensible policy morally, but there is a strategic logic to what Iran is trying to do here. They're trying to cause enough chaos to impact the local economy, but also the global economy, that it brings the US to the table on terms that are more favorable to Iran, i.e. it's in the US's interest to end the war, but not necessarily Iran's. Right. As this war drags out...
I just want to cover this here really quick. This is pretty important, but this is basically losses that the U.S. has sustained during this war so far. This is obviously for the Air Force, but we have one F-35. It was hit by air defense. That's probably the biggest shock, because people said this shouldn't be able to happen, right? This is one of those things where this is supposed to be like a so stealthy that it can't be hit, it can't be seen. We have some more warnings coming in. And then we had 3 F-15s, and those were shot down by friendly fire, which is, you know, just the amount of money. You know, this has 90 million for those 3 that were shot down, not to mention the missiles that hit. So those are millions each as well. We had some K-135s. So we had the 2 that were supposedly in a midair collision, and that's where we saw the this is where we saw the people that I think it was 6 crew members we lost. The other one just got damaged, so I don't know. Yeah, that's this one here, damaged in a midair collision. And then there were also other ones that got hit at an airbase. So we have a ton of these refuelers, so it's not a huge hit, but I mean, price wise, that's $40 million in addition to that 90 million for the Strike Eagles, in addition to 110 million for the F-135, or to the F-35. And then you have the 12 MQ Reaper drones shot down. We've seen some of those get hit. That's per unit is 30 million. So these numbers is for each one, right? So like the 40 million is per Stratotanker, 90 million per plane. So this is 30 million per Reaper drone. And there's 12. Then we have a helicopter that got hit by an FPV drone, and I believe that was a medical helicopter, if I remember right. It's a Black Hawk, but I thought they said something about it being like marked for medical. But I mean, that's insane. So that's over $1 billion in losses that we've hit. Obviously, the human life is more important, but that's kind of crazy.
The government saying that the Israelis are significantly increasing all of their strikes on Iranian military assets within the next 48 hours because they have credible intelligence that Trump could actually fold and agree to a ceasefire. So that doesn't mean that it's going to happen, of course. The Israelis struggle to read Trump as much as anyone else, but the fact that they're even doing that they're changing and actually upping the number of strikes suggests that they are hedging their bets here. There is a credible chance, or at least from the Israeli side, a credible belief that Trump could end this thing sooner rather than later.
A credible chance that this could be ended, Daniel. Ended how and what? We've seen both sides basically state very maximalist positions, right? That you'd have to think, is it likely, for example, the Iranians would accept all of those demands, which they didn't accept before the war began, and now after they've withstood 4 weeks of this, that they're suddenly going to cave into all those demands?
I think from the Iranian perspective, it looks like they have not established the degree of deterrence that they think would stop any future attacks on Iran. So
They want to go on, you're basically saying.
I think the Iranians want to go on. I think they think they're winning because basically they can just serve as disruptors and continue to chokehold the international economy. And really, I don't see an end to this conflict until there's a resolution for the Strait of Hormuz. I can't imagine that Trump would leave this conflict and leave the Strait of Hormuz disrupted as it is. As one of the core national security imperatives for the U.S. in the Gulf region is securing the waterways and securing energy sources. These are the two core national security interests of the U.S. And so I cannot see with the Strait of Hormuz totally under the thumb of Iran an end to the war.
All right. A brief one, Rob. You mentioned the role of Israel. Who's going to prevail this time? Will Donald Trump be able to force an end, if that is what we think he wants, on Israel?
Well, the fact that Israel is changing its tactics now and actually upping its bombing campaign, I would argue actually illustrates that the Israelis feel like they are going to have to fold. And if the Americans call a ceasefire, they'll be compelled to follow it. Obviously, that might be an optimistic projection, but it's based on history as well. We know, for example, the 12-day war of last year. Israeli pilots were in the skies on the way to bomb Tehran when Donald Trump called the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and told them to come back. Netanyahu wasn't happy about it, but in the end, he did what Trump told him to do. So if the Americans do go for a ceasefire, there is a fighting chance, at least, that the Israelis will feel compelled to do the same, even if they're not happy about it.
Right, let's thank both of our guests, Dania Dhafar here, the Executive Director of Gulf International Forum, and Rob Guy-Spinfold, Lecturer in International Security at King's College London. Iran continued to strike targets inside Israel on Wednesday. An Iranian missile landed near the city of Haifa, sending a plume of smoke into the sky. Elsewhere, a missile caused a huge fire at a warehouse in the town of Yashresh. Noor Auda is in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. So, Noor, I mentioned the strike on Haifa. There's also been one on Eilat. What does the pattern of targets tell us?
Well, I mean, if you look at the map, Sami, first of all, you remember what a small geography we're talking about. So these cities, we're not talking about a large country like Iran, for example. Israel is a small country. So when we talk about Eilat, this is a tourist destination. It has, access to the Red Sea, but it also has a port for Israel's Navy. When we talk about the Negev, there are industrial zones there with petrochemical factories, there are army bases, air force bases. Same in Haifa, you have the Navy there, you have important assets in Tel Aviv itself, which has also been targeted. You have the headquarters of the Ministry of Defense, of the Mossad, of so many other agencies. Safad, which was also targeted yesterday. It has important intelligence assets in Israel. All those cities, all those locations have been targeted. We've seen the extensive damage caused to civilian neighborhoods, and especially in the south, in Dimona, in Arad, also in Tel Aviv, that damage has been quite extensive. In some instances, like the strike on Safad, we weren't told where the Iranian missile fell, but we were told 4 people were injured.
All right, thanks so much to our correspondent, Noor Auda from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. The US airstrike targeted Iraq's Popular Mobilization Forces.
It looks like right now we do have some missile and drone alerts for Israel. That was about 3 minutes ago. So if they don't clear those here shortly, meaning they've intercepted them, then we may end up with some sirens on our cams and we can switch over.
On Tuesday, Kuwait, the UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Jordan, they've all issued a joint statement calling on Iraq to take all measures to prevent attacks launched from its territory against neighboring countries. And Nicholas Huck joins us now live from the Iraqi capital in Baghdad. So are we now seeing tensions rise between Arab states and Iraq as well as Iran.
Yeah, tension certainly, but it leaves the government in Baghdad in a difficult position because it has to contend with these Iran-backed militias in Iraq. Some of them are part of the government-sanctioned Popular Mobilization Force, a force that was created to fight ISIL fighters in 2018. And they are powerful. In theory, they are under the command of the government of Baghdad, but actually, in reality, they are autonomous and act upon the decisions of Tehran, closer to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. So that leaves Baghdad in the government of Baghdad in a difficult position. Now, we've heard a statement following that statement from the Gulf countries from one of these factions called Awliya al-Dam, which is the Brigades of the Guardian of the Blood, and their spokesperson said that they're exclusively targeting American presence in the Gulf states and Jordan, and they say that their intention is to escalate or intensify their operations, as they say there are going to be more American troops coming to the region. So there's no sign of letting. And Sammy, as we speak, I can hear American warplanes hovering above. Earlier today, around 1500 local time, they hit the base of Al-Qaim, which is a military base of the Popular Mobilization Force, also an Iranian-backed militia group in Iraq, close to the border of Syria. And so this tit for tat, this escalation where we see these Iranian-backed militias attacking U.S. positions here and the American response, well, that's escalating here in Iraq. Sammy?
Basically, Nicholas, is the central government there being pushed into a position where it will have to choose a side in this conflict?
Yes, I mean, it's like they're on a tightrope, and it's a very difficult act to balance. And the more there's an escalation, the more keeping on that tightrope becomes difficult for the government of Baghdad. Look, we spoke to some Iraqi officials, and they told us that the Americans came to them saying, if you can rein in on these Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, if you can stop them from targeting the U.S. consulate in Erbil, or targeting the Victory base that's just west of Baghdad, or targeting the American base here in the Green Zone, then we will stop hitting these Popular Mobilization Force, the Iranian-backed militias on the ground. But the reality is Baghdad doesn't have the hand on many of these militias that seem to be acting independently. So it's very difficult for the Iraqi government. Remember, they have to contend with this militia force. They have the largest border with Iran. And if there is a ground invasion, chances are these Iran-backed militias will react, but also will their territory be used? They feel, the government of Baghdad, that they're dragged into a war that is not their own. Sammy?
That's Nicholas Hug for us from the Iraqi capital. There's been some more economic fallout of all of this. The global benchmark oil price dropped back below $100 a barrel on Wednesday. Financial markets appear to be more hopeful that the war won't last too long. Major U.S. indices rose too after President Trump said there was progress to negotiate an end to the conflict. Stocks also traded higher in Asia. In India, frustration is growing over potential fuel shortages. Drivers in some states have been queuing at fuel stations for hours. India imports about 90% of its crude oil, mostly from Gulf states. It has negotiated with Iran to allow its tankers through the Strait of Hormuz after they were stuck for days. We'll be back in about 30 minutes with more of our coverage.
I've been seeing multiple missile alerts coming in and drones as well. So I'm not sure how far away it is. And it doesn't appear they've been intercepted yet. So we might be seeing something here shortly. Obviously, we don't want to see destruction. We don't want to see hits. We want to see interceptions. gunshots in Lebanon. But yeah, I mean, obviously, this kind of lifestyle, just basically waiting for sirens to go off, running to your bunkers, and then getting back out just to go back in a few minutes later again, doing it for months at a time. Let's see, you're talking about the main Tel Aviv cam. That would be that one. So yeah, the most of them that I've seen, they'll have the same rules. Is they cannot show destruction and they cannot show where the hits are. So anytime something comes in on these cams here, they pan away and basically look at the ground. So they're not really very useful. I mean, you can hear hits and stuff like that, but you're not going to really see anything. Oh, it looks like northern Israel just went out. And I believe that's probably where some of the warnings are from. It's probably, let me see, I think it's northern Israel. Oh, no. Oh. Yeah, it's up by Dibon. So it's technically northern Israel. So that could be launched from Lebanon. It looks like Home Front Command, looks like they just cleared it. At least one of them. Looks like we might have some EAMs coming in as well. I have a long wire and a loop antenna, and it's always interesting, depending on the weather, to decide which one to run. But eventually I'll have it set up to run both and run multiple different channels, scanning between all of them. I just need to test it. I don't want to set that up and then have it be the whole time on the 24/7 stream. All right, it looks like I'm just double checking all these alerts. So it looks like they cleared them all. So, and right as I say that, more coming. So that's interesting. It says they cleared the incident and then more alarms are going off. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Looks like they might be refreshing their cams. Make sure you guys hit that like, subscribe if you're not already. We do this, try and do it just about every day, but worse, it's every other day. And then we have 24/7 monitoring over at Offscript Radio, and you can see that down in the bottom of the channel. Going across the screen, Offscript Radio on YouTube. We try and do, it's probably more like 23/7, because you know you have to restart a few times a day. But we try and check it at least a few times a day, make sure all the cams are up, update the news ticker and that kind of thing. So it's a good place if you want to chat with people and maybe find some friends, right? But you can also get a hold of me on TriggerSmart HQ, and you can send tips and just general emails to engcwarrior@gmail.com. And there are ways to support the channel down in the description. But thanks to all the mods, all the channel members. Just double checking the chat here. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that stuff, Moon Goddess. That's tough stuff to go through. Yeah, Tammy Kinney over on Rumble. We have our grumblers with us. Says hit that thumbs up, people. It's the only thing that makes YouTube happy. There could be 10,000 people here right now. If no one hits thumbs ups, YouTube's not going to push it anymore. All right, yeah, it looks like they're clear. So if you want to keep monitoring, you're welcome to go over to Off Script Radio, and it'll keep, every time there's alarms and alerts and stuff and sirens, it'll go over to those cams automatically. And make sure I get all this. Yep. So it looks like I've gotten everything taken care of. All right. Just want to say thanks to the moderators again. Thanks to all the channel members. And you're saying we need to do a prepper live? You mean as far as like ways to prep and that kind of stuff? I'm always hesitant to do that because there's channels that have been doing how to prep and have prep content, for the last 20 years. So, I mean, obviously I could do it my way and share information from my point of view and that kind of thing. But there is so much good information out there already that I'm hesitant to recreate it, but you never know. I mean, same with obviously the firearms content. There were people before me that did a great job, and then I come and I try and make it a little bit better and add a little bit more value to it and that kind of thing and make it easier to understand. So maybe I could do something with some of that. But I appreciate everyone being here. This has been interesting. I'll try and go back to the video and add the timestamps and stuff in it to make it easier to navigate, since we had that little gap in the middle when I was talking to Baron. But yeah, make sure you guys go check out Baron's live tonight. He said he has some very interesting stuff going on. Let's see, last question here. Chastity Phillips, is it worth storing ammo? So if you are depending on hunting, for sure, you should definitely store ammo, and obviously for self-defense. So, and you always need more than what you think you need. And the good thing about ammo is not only is it obviously good for self-defense and that kind of stuff, but it also doubles as once money becomes obsolete, which it will. If SHTF actually happened, you're going to get to the point where, like obviously you have gold and silver and stuff like that, but you could even use ammunition to barter, and you could trade it and use it almost like money, right? So not only can you use it for self-defense and hunting and that kind of stuff, and to start fires and, a lot of different other things if you're creative, but you can also use it as a form of currency. So I would definitely say yes. Moon Goddess says she's a bow hunter. I do bows too as well. All right, awesome. But what I'll probably do is, depending, unless something crazy happens later today, I probably won't go live again today. But I'll plan on being live tomorrow. But hopefully I'll see you all there tomorrow, and have a good rest of your day. I'll see you on the next one.